Welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about a very interesting story, and so it involves a dog getting a little bit hurt. It doesn't die or anything like that, but if you're sensitive to that, just want you to know before we get too much into this. The story happened many years ago down in Mississippi in this swampy area. The girl that was a teenager at the time, her family had a pretty big property, and they also had a dog. We're going to call him Bandit for the story. And Bandit loved just kind of being a farm dog and running around the property. But on this particular day, just wasn't interested in being outside, and that made Katie really kind of take notice because that just wasn't like Bandit at all. So she went outside and she could smell like this horrible smell, and not like a skunk, not like burning or anything like that, but just something really off and foul, like rotten eggs. She described it like like a garbage and rotten eggs, just this horrible off smell in the air. And Bandit was just cowering, didn't even want to be anywhere near the door. Anytime she would get over by the door, it would run away. And like I said, they have a pretty big property with some marshy areas. And she went outside, and she like was trying to get Bandit to go outside with her to kind of keep an eye out. So they went outside and were walking out, looking over the field out kind of towards the swampy, like where their property met the swampy area. And uh and some she could hear some branches and stuff moving and snapping, and she thought that was kind of strange. And then she heard the sound, what sounded like when you go to a baseball game and they're hitting baseballs with a wooden bat. Said that it sounded just like that. And she's like, man, something's knocking in the woods. She could just hear brush thrashing and stuff. And Bandit came out next to her, and they're about 30-40 yards away from this brush line. And then out of nowhere, an apple comes flying out of the tree line and actually hits Bandit, and the dog just goes ripping off, like, and goes and hides behind one of the cars. And she looks and she just sees this huge hairy creature just turn and run back in the bushes. And right along that kind of area, they had some, just right outside of that marshy area, they had a couple fruit trees that were growing apples at the time. And it looks like this creature was going out and actually eating on the apples. So it was going to pick a couple, and then it was just eating back in the tree line. And it chucked one at the dog, and she never nothing ever happened like that ever again in her whole youth, and she didn't tell anyone for years afterwards, besides just some of her closest friends. But Katie will never forget that. And I think that if we're going to be, out there looking for this, if whatever the case may be, it's just a reminder they like treats, if just like the rest of us. So that's the story of the fruit tree down in the swamp. Hope you like and subscribe. Bandit's just fine, by the way, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye.